Although the behind-the-scenes trailer delved into preliminary concepts and early prototypes of the next Dragon Age game, we now actually have many moods, themes, and other indicators that allude to the game's overall vision. We have more than just speculation to talk about, but an actual tone of the game's foundations, like potential locations, factions, enemies, plot threads, etc. With that said, we have a couple of questions going forward, all based on what this trailer revealed.
So the first question is, who will our new hero be? In the next Dragon Age, we will be playing as someone brand new. However, this time around, our new hero will be dealing with what happens when they don't have power, and what happens when the people in charge aren't willing to address the issues. Unlike the Inquisitor, who was basically a religious figure straight off the bat, with a magical hand that could seal away the realm of spirits and demons, our new hero will most likely come from humbled tidings, an off-the-radar hero not known by Solus, like a Tevinter slave, a Lord of Fortune, an Antivan crow, etc. Literally anyone new who relates to the northern parts of Thedas. Considering the new setting of Tevinter and its surrounding nations, something all of us in the fandom would like to see is the return of origin stories, just like Dragon Age Origins, a character background prologue that builds and cultivates our hero's journey as they enter into the main narrative. Having many different origins would be a perfect way to introduce many new aspects of this game, like recently introduced factions, characters, and locations. In other words, it'd make for a very welcome return. As our hero enters the picture, there are going to be powerful characters introduced into the narrative who aren't willing to address the issues at stake. The next Dragon Age is going to feature many conflicts, like the Qunari invasion and Solus's scheme. The main narrative may pivot between these feuds, however, the ones in charge who have the power to do something are instead deciding to do nothing. Thanks to Tevinter Knights, there are many factions that currently face many issues, yet lack the proper lengths of tackling what's going on. For example, perhaps our new hero will delegate with Antiva's royals who have a pursuing Qunari invasion, yet no means of defending themselves other than the crows who face their own trouble with losing the majority of their leaders. Or we could meet with Navarra's Mortalitasi, who were recently intercepted and threatened by the Dreadwolf himself, and therefore have decided not to intrude on his plans further. And then there's the Tevinter's Magisterium, which is just a cesspool of prideful, incompetent mages who'd rather boast one's ego than actually delegate on political matters, like the Qunari invasion and the upcoming Elven War with Fen'Harel and his cultists, and many other factions that would rather bicker among themselves than actually deal with the true threat. Take the Wardens of Weishaupt, for example. They've cut ties to the rest of the Southern Wardens as they remain silent in their stronghold. In summary, there is a lot of uproar and drama with many nations and subgroups of Northern Thedas, while amongst their pettiness, real issues and war lingers. Our new hero has presumably got quite the challenge of dealing with each going forward.
Regarding this trailer, the second question we have, there were so many locations, but what's the open world approach this time around? The trailer showcased many conceptual new locations that show the vision and scope of the next game. We speculated that the main nations of Thedas shown were Antiva, the Anderfels, Navarra, Tevinter, and a few dwarven taigs and kingdoms. While that is just speculation, it reveals that BioWare has a fairly large scope for the next game, as it seems we'll have a huge chunk of Northern Thedas to explore. However, what is going to be the open world approach this time around? While this question is most certainly too early to fully delve into, considering the game is still in very early stages of production, it's very much a topical conversation that needs to be had. Dragon Age Inquisition featured hub-based open world spaces in which you could freely explore to your own discretion, sailing rifts, defeating dragons, and taking in the sites of Ferelden, the Dales, and Orlais. While the areas were vastly different and incredibly beautiful with their different styles and gameplay mechanics, like Crestwood's entire weather dynamic reacting to the Inquisitor sealing a huge rift, this open world approach was very much a different direction for the franchise, and frankly for BioWare as a whole. Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, and the Mass Effect trilogy each followed a linear with freedom, hub-based approach. This means that the player follows fairly linear levels, each with a set path. However, there's still plenty of room to explore with side quests and other content in the level. Look at Redcliffe in Dragon Age Origins, where you can explore the surrounding area in a limited capacity, complete some side quests, and then continue with the main narrative. In contrast, Dragon Age Inquisition followed an open world, hub-based approach. This means the player follows an open, hub-based world with many avenues to exploration and an emphasis on side content. The Hinterlands is the prime example of this. While the main quest is to meet Mother Giselle, you need to gain power to progress through the story. To meet that criteria, you have to destroy rifts, engage in fetch quests, and explore the areas, unlocking one hub at a time as you progress through the story and gain more power. While the worlds are very fun to explore, this approach takes the attention away from the main narrative and instead makes the player engage with busy work. With so many locations potentially planned for Dragon Age 4, how will the game deal with its approach to a hub-based open world? Well, the Trespasser DLC was indicative of Dragon Age's original linear with freedom hub-based approach. None of the levels in that DLC were large open world spaces behind a power mechanic. Instead, you would go through an alluvion when you wanted to enter the next level, and within each area there was smaller, meaningful content for the player to discover, like significant codex entries and a new armor set. These levels themselves were very much linear with freedom. For example, you can explore the Via de Fara's surrounding area, completing puzzles and finding new lore pieces. However, you were always brought back to the same path, which would then continue the main narrative. So Trespasser is proof that perhaps Dragon Age 4's open world aspect will be stripped back to the game's original design, allowing for more focused areas with less busy work and clutter. Not only does this approach affect the design of the game, but how the players themselves are traversing throughout the world. For example, will we use the alluvion method to levels again? Will we have a pet griffin that we ride to certain locations? Will we have a pirate ship? Or will we simply teleport to a new area? With so many conceptual areas covered in the next game, from the Anderfels to Antiva, will the level designs and open world hubs be smaller in scale but bigger in scope? This is certainly a topic we'll come back to in the future, but for now, consider it food for thought.
The third question is, are heists going to be in Dragon Age 4? 3 of the concept shots showcased heist-like stealth missions. The first shot is an underwater treasure hunt with what looks to be Isabella and company as they evade their attackers. The second shot shows a Tevinter alleyway with multiple agents sneaking around the corner of a most intriguing Tevinter figure. The third shot shows an Antivan crow heist as prevalent characters masquerade as crows, stealing the handheld carriage holding a noble lady. Each of these shots follow an espionage approach, finding treasure beneath the depths of a sea, shadowing ambiguous Tevinter figures across a city, and kidnapping a significant noble while disguised as crows. These all could be considered as heists, criminal operations schemed for the greater good, perhaps relating to the fact that our new protagonist will be dealing with characters who aren't willing to address the issue. So we will handle it ourselves in the best way we can without being noticed. In the end of Trespasser, the Inquisition was judged for its size and level of corruption from within. This time around, it would make sense to have a smaller crew, tackling stealthy missions as we hunt Solus without bringing too much attention to ourselves and facing infiltration from Solus's agents. It makes sense for this approach given that Solus has made himself known to many key factions in Thetis, posing as a threat to each. The only way to beat him to the punch is to penetrate through the cracks of his force with a smaller, tight-knit team who will fulfill the mission of the Inquisitor who couldn't do it themselves because of their power and reputation. So, will heists be a major gameplay design for Dragon Age 4? There are plenty of ancient artifacts and knowledge throughout Northern Thetis, and many of them could make up for great stealth undertakings.
The fourth question we have is, what about choices and consequences? Choice and decision making was touched upon by some of of the developers in the trailer. They spoke on how decision making can mean that a party member lives or a party member dies, and it means owning your outcome and reactivity to the choices that you do make. In Dragon Age Inquisition, there were distinct choices we had over a character's life, like the decision of leaving Hawk or the Warden in the Fade. A very obvious decision of this character will most likely die if you choose them to stay and fight. In contrast to that, Inquisition also had more subtle decisions that at the time didn't feel like they'd have an impact, but in actuality ended up in the betrayal and death of certain characters, like Iron Bull's switch to the Qun in Trespasser. In the next Dragon Age, it sounds like BioWare are aiming for more nuanced, subtle approaches to having agency over a character's life. Perhaps we'll be dealing with major consequences that affect our party members in the same vein as Mass Effect 2. However, more developed given Inquisition's improvements. Mass Effect 2 was a game built around reactivity and agency centered on the player's decisions. Will the next Dragon Age follow the same style of choice and consequence? This would make the stakes of every single mission that much more tense if our companions can die and react when we decide to lead a certain path or pursue a choice they don't like.
The fifth question is, how much familiarity are we going to have? The familiarity we are going to have from previous games are close to none. We are traveling to new regions of Thedas that we have never seen before, which is clearly shown in the location's conceptual shots. With the new locations comes new characters, new culture, a new way of life, a completely new Dragon Age game with a brand new experience. While many fans, including ourselves, would love to see the return of companions from the previous games, this is most likely not going to happen. And that's because our Inquisitor themselves said we need new people who Solas doesn't know to defeat him, because Solas is adept at learning the weaknesses of characters who are known to him. Not only that, but there needs to be an actual reason for a character's return besides the fans' demands. BioWare wants to tell a different story with a new hero and new characters alongside them. While we will have cameos from previous characters, and I'm sure at least some will return as pivotal roles like Dorian, Scout Harding, the Inquisitor, and so on, there are a lot of faces who just won't return for many reasons, simply because they don't have a motivation in the next narrative. BioWare will be creating brand new characters for us to experience and fall in love with. We're no longer stuck in the South, but have an entire new continent to explore, speculatively. With that being said, we should prepare for an incredibly different experience than the previous games. No more Inquisition comparisons, or how this game will fill that game's mold. Instead, we should expect something completely different, a much smaller role for our hero, yet with an incredibly threatening plot. The next Dragon Age game is going to feel very different, and I think that's what we all need going forward for this franchise.
The final question we have is, what are the main threats in the next Dragon Age? While we can't unravel the entire narrative of the next Dragon Age based on this behind the scenes trailer, although we may try, we do see a few shots that resemble many key threats we will most likely face. The most obvious of these threats is Solas, of course, as he will most certainly act as our antagonist. Whether he'll have a change of heart or will be able to redeem him, or if he is the true antagonist, that's another topic, but we can assume we'll face a lot of opposition against Solas and his elven agents. Another threat for the next Dragon Age will be the conceptual Lovecraftian sea monsters like the Cetus, which we know was contrived by the elven goddess Gillinan. She was known to create giants, monsters and beasts that spanned across the sky, water and earth. When she ascended to godhood, she had to destroy all her creatures. She only spared her beloved Hala and those who dwell in the seas, as pride stopped her hand from destroying them. The horror of Hormak in Tevinter Nights confirmed that Gillinan's creations aren't just Dalish legends, but they actually exist and dwell in Thedas today. While they roam throughout the land, they've recently been discovered in many northern locations, like ancient dwarven tags buried into mountains, and Tevinter's capital city, Menrathis, which is surrounded by the Notion Sea. With Pride sparing the creatures' lives, one can only assume what plans Pride has for each of them. And moving on, there is still the lingering threat of two remaining regarding blights coming for Thedas, we learned in Inquisition from Bianca that red lyrium consists of the blight, and that red lyrium cannot be simply removed from living things. From what we can see in the concept art, red lyrium is spreading quickly throughout Thedas' land by corrupting plant life, organisms, animals, the ecosystem, and eventually the people of Thedas. We see a conceptual shot of a darkspawn reaper who's been infected by red lyrium. Even the blighted can be affected by this maddening substance, giving them more power like supernatural abilities. The blight seems to be a larger threat when red lyrium and the mysteriously returning red lyrium idol are at the course of its corruption. The concept art shows how corrupt Thedas has become because of the growth of red lyrium. The threat of the next blight may creep up on Thedas before anyone can prevent it from happening. Other threats shown in this trailer include the conflicted Qunari invasion of Antiva and northern Tevinter. The Qun will not be denied. We can assume many Tevinter cults like the remnants of the Venatori will return, and we have new creatures and monsters like spiders with freaking hands. And of course, more dragons in Dragon Age. At least conceptually, the next Dragon Age is looking very menacing with the amount of opposing threats we may face, and that's just based on this behind the scenes trailer.
So with our 6 main questions shared, we want to know what lingering questions you have based on this behind the scenes trailer. Of course, this is just our speculation based on this trailer that is just creating a mood for the next Dragon Age, but we like having fun in tinfoiling away anyways. Tell us all your thoughts below, and don't forget to check out my channel too for more Dragon Age content. And until the next one,
we should go.
go.
Whoa.